All right. Keep growing.
Hello, everyone.
It's supposed to shrink, but we keep growing. This is good. The frame is growing. Johnny, how you been, man? You look cozy in England. You're muted.
Please note the call
That'll
is
do it.
being recorded.
Yeah, we got some snow on the ground today, so any other Brits in here will be seeing a bit of a bit of a snappy cold one today. So I'm cozied up in my office.
Nice. Well, Johnny, I wanted to give you the floor to kind of kick off the topic today.
Yeah. So you and I have talked a lot about personal branding. I think, personal branding is something that everybody bandies this
Please
term
note the
around
call
and
is being recorded.
kind of it's overdone and overplayed and kind of a cheap markety sort of a topic. Um, but you've got to have one. So ultimately, the way the world sees us is our personal brand, whether we like it or not. So, in the context of frame, what does that look like? Um, so, I think everybody's still doing the hangover from, Russell Brunson's ClickFunnels and the info marketing era. So, you go on LinkedIn or anywhere, the first thing that you see is markety, really markety banners. Even people who are high status frame holding people, it's markety. They've got these banners, they've got cheesy profile pictures, they've got what I would call really cinematic bios, all kind of pain-led cinematic bios. And it just stinks to high heaven because that kind of stuff was designed for, you know, click funnels, click the link, buy the cheap ascension ladder, buy the $90 thing, move up the ladder. It was all done for that, but it's inbound and it's dead. So the first thing that I'll do with clients is look at how do we look to the outside world. So a great exercise is, look at your own profile as though you've just reached out to someone. It's the first thing they see, a connection request on LinkedIn, it could be an email, could be an intro from someone. So what does it look like? And kind of the way that we do with the DMs and so on. What does it look like if you receive it? So the first thing I'll do is that and highlight, and people often go, "Oh shit, this is so cheesy." I know what you're saying. So the first thing I would do is, how does a high frame person look? How does a high status person look? If you landed on Ray Dalio's profile somewhere, or if Warren Buffett was on LinkedIn, what would he look like? Usually stripped back. Don't prove me wrong, Justin. Don't go and get a profile and it's like Ray Dalio's big cheesy banner. Um, um,
I
but
might do everything the opposite of Johnny after this call. Just
yeah,
go have
yeah,
a big fish picture and like a checklist of my values.
yeah, you probably so. So I'm all about stripped back. I mean, I'm all about an element of mystique, enigma, scarcity. All of those things speak to high ticket. So whether people in here are in sales or whether they're in consulting, coaching, those kind of things, high ticket is scarce, enigmatic, a word that Justin uses a lot. And so you've got to look at that throughout social profiles, posts, interviews, pictures. How do people feel about us before we even get into those conversations? Do we look like we're out there to sell everybody and market to everyone? Or do we look fairly indifferent as though we're just holding ground and this is us? My background is a black piece of marble. And I say very little in my headline about what I do because I don't want to telegram a pitch to anyone. My bio is a statement of fact, not a cinematic storyline. So, and it works incredibly well for me. I can, as you said, Justin, closed a client a week ago, 150K in 40 minutes. I mean, these are pretty decent deals in this kind of a space. So, and I depend a lot on that kind of thing. So I think when you're talking about the way you behave and present, the way you talk in your comms, discredit adversaries, speaking ill of others, making lots of marketing noise, it's not conducive with a high frame person, usually. High frame people don't need to shout. They're typically reserved, professional. So, dangerous people aren't out there acting like a circus act. So when you do the opposite, and something you and I have always said, Justin, when you look at what everybody's doing and do the opposite, everybody on LinkedIn is doing that. You do the opposite, you're going to stand head and shoulders above anyone else in this red ocean. So, I'm always thinking, is this a serious human? Is this a David C. Baker, a Blair Enns? Is this a serious human being, or selling me some cheap marketing stuff that looks like $100? So, I mean, what are your thoughts on it, Justin?
Well, we're getting a lot of like, oh, you copied Oren Klaff, but actually there was a behavioral psychologist or a researcher named Goffman, I think, in the 70s, who did a book called like Frame Systems. I love about Oren is he has his Lamborghini for Zoom. So he calls it status cues. So he'll like stand up on the camera and walk backward so that he can fit his physical Lamborghini into the frame. So, but there's two types of frames. There's a frame which it's you're so dominant, right? There's the invisible line of I don't know any other English word, forgive me, douchebaggery, where it's like our frame is now off the Richter. Like, here's my Lambo, like here's my gold watch, like, hey, So it's like
Yeah, yeah,
where
yeah.
is the line of cueing status and holding some kind of status, but also, and maybe there's a humble frame, right? We often get too spiritual in the group. Is that a is there right? It's like the monk that's condescending. So yeah, where's the line? Is a good question for today.
Yeah, good point. And a lot of that stuff, the watch, the Lambo and all that, it's in for marketing era again. I've got to have people land on this page and see that I've got a Lambo and a gold Rolex because I'm gonna sell I'm gonna sell my program, right? My $3,000 program. That's not what we're doing here, and um doesn't work in 2025, I can assure you.
Just to sort of throw a different angle at this, if I may, like from the perspective that we're speaking, so providing professional coaching one to one, as an example, I I kind of see your point. I think the other angle that or the other lens that I come at this through is looking at businesses that are completely unrelated to what we do, right? So whether it be service based, software based, um, and there's a school of thought which I've seen work whereby the LinkedIn profile is essentially an advertising platform, right? That banner at the top is exactly that. It's an advertising banner. And when certain businesses, are sort of prospecting in or kind of making inroads into an ICP, which wouldn't be anywhere near related to our quote unquote ICP, but but then those individuals that they're sort of prospecting into inevitably go and check out your landing page. They are always trading on short amount of time. So by having the banner at the top, which explicitly calls out, I solve supply chain issues, as an example, or we fix, we work with heritage e-commerce brands to boost before like, and you're targeting those types of businesses and those types of individuals. When they land on that page, it almost provides a piece of comfort for them that, oh, okay, this person actually gets why what I do and why I should probably care. So I think
Yeah.
and I've seen it work that way. But to your point, like I've reframed a bit of my profile the way that you're sort of describing it with a bit of mystique, and it's working. But I just think, yeah, it just depends on what lens we're looking through the topic at.
It does. It does. If you're selling a super niche specific service and it's like that's it, it's razor thin, and it's possibly voluminous, like we're selling a voluminous service or a SaaS or a tech kind of unit, then yeah, it makes sense because you want the profile to convert. You might even run ads to it. You might do those kind of things. But I suppose everything that I would talk about in this group is aimed at people who want to close big ticket deals or who want to do, you know, whatever that looks like, negotiations or whatever. So I'm kind of coming from that lens. But yeah, if you were talking to me about, I don't know, if you were selling Salesforce, then yeah, go for it. Salesforce banner and logo belongs there. So there's two worlds, but I'm looking at how do you up level and go and sell 100 grand's worth of one-to-one stuff, or So I think we agree on the main kind of.
Yeah, it's genuinely helped. I would say I've definitely seen an uptick, and that less is more thing.
Yeah,
I'm going to be going through an exercise, when I get a minute in the next week or two to kind of refine it down even further.
nice.
But yeah,
I slip every once in a while and just start making AI superheroes of myself, and Johnny's like, I'm gonna come get you, It does happen. But if Fiona, you kind of rebranded, so I know this is like an area you've been thinking about. Sorry to put you on the spot, but what are your thoughts?
It's interesting because I've just redone my banner and I'm not sure if I like it because I just always had just nothing well, not a nothing, but there was nothing, there was no advertising. I didn't use it as real estate. And I've just done it because somebody said, "Oh, you should put something on there," and I'm really in two minds about it. But with my website, I stripped everything back to the bare bones, very little language, a little bit about them, a little bit about me, a little bit about what I do, and a form to fill in. There's no phone number, there's no book a call, there's no nothing, just a lead form which has got set questions on it, and then it says, kind of, I can't remember the exact line, but it's essentially, if I like what I read, I'll contact you.
I like that. So I had a mentor, Brian Franklin, who was the first person to pay me the most base salary, which was cool. And I walked away on that deal. It was a good result. And he was Reid Hoffman's coach. And he said to me, the more enigmatic, the higher the fee. And I just sort of like navel gazed and contemplated that for like years. It was one of those Zen koans, like, what's the sound of one hand clapping? And I'm like, just what? But it was sort of like if you give your pricing and your bullet points, like then another person can do like a Google, they can just undercut you. They're like, oh, I'll do the same thing Justin's doing just for a lot less money. So that's something to think about because scarcity creates value and exclusivity creates a premium. You
And
definitely
you've got to hold that frame. There's a nervousness in me still, like, oh fuck, have I taken too much away? And I have to really sit with that and get okay with it, that no, this is the direction to be going in. Because you can, if you just use cars as an analogy, there isn't a Ferrari dealership on every corner. Not every town has a Ferrari dealership, so you have to go somewhere to go test drive a Ferrari. And if that's what we're aligning ourselves to as far as frame is concerned, you can't be too available.
Yeah.
They even say, are you accredited? Do you already own a Ferrari? Like, do you have $1 million to your name? There's like a lot of precursors. They don't just let anyone drive it. I don't know, Johnny, is it worth going around and seeing how people have read the book and have changed the frame or up leveled their brand? Has anyone like read frame and went and radically made over themselves? Look, we're not changing who we are, right? It's They're like facets on a diamond. We're trying to highlight our most empowered, highest frame self. Who wants to share? Anyone? I know someone in this room must have done this. I did this.
Yeah.
I would say, Justin, I'm in the midst of it. And I appreciate all the comments. Johnny's point is interesting because there's so many people screaming put everything in the headline. And I've been alternating with just throw everything out there and then, thinking more about, well, wait, what is the type of work that I really enjoy doing? And what do I think I'm better at? And like, what would that look like? So I would say I'm still a bit lost in the midst of trying to sort through it, but I appreciate the the comments and the thoughtfulness of how people are working through this, because I do think it's important, and a lot of scrolls through LinkedIn right now are rather nauseating, and I certainly
Great word.
don't want to be contributing to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think, Mike, that people are really scared about the headline and the positioning in terms of, yeah, but when I reach out to people, I want them to know why I'm reaching out and accept my connection request or respond to it. I'm kind of talking about LinkedIn here because that's the top, that's the the sketchboard that we're kind of talking about. But I've found the opposite. In what I do, I know why I'm reaching out to these people. I know. So I know they're people that I can help. And that's all that matters. So it's actually just as bad as pitching someone is kind of saying, I help this person do that with this set of tools. Well, as soon as I reach out and connect, I'm already pitching them. I'm priming them for a pitch and they know it. So I'm selecting the chartreuse 1 to 3% anyway, in my opinion. So if I know why I'm connecting to these people and I know that I can benefit them, then this is my mission-based targeting. So I get a way higher acceptance rate and a way more openness to converse. And therefore I pick up way, way, way more, prospect conversations and converted clients than people who specify and go really hard on exactly what my mission here is today. That's been my experience of it. And it kind of logically, you could see why that happens.
What about in sharing content and doing posts? Like I've done some and taken them down. I've been trying to figure out what's going to resonate most. But what's your logic there, Johnny, or anyone? Like you're thinking, okay, I need to do something higher fame because you see a lot of posts where it's like, do I selfie? Do I not selfie? Maybe some selfies are good. None of these rules are like hard and fast. Never do this, never do that. But there's some things that are obviously kind of low frame just by nature,
Yeah.
where there's like a cringe or ick factor. Like, whoa, some like the
Yeah.
classic
Does
ones.
anyone know Greg Head from
No.
Practical Founders?
Share your screen, man. Let's get into it.
I think he's one of my favorite examples of why you don't actually have to do any of this shit and you can still have a really, really tight audience and good engagement. So this is Greg. This is his headline. This is his banner. Pretty straightforward. There's no gimmicks here. Greg's about is like like a CV written I am a, and his content it doesn't really go viral or anything. But if you look at the people that are in here, and he only posts like 2 to 3 times a week, it's all extremely, extremely focused for SaaS founders. And it's either stories or snippets from his podcast, which he kind of does like once a week. And every single person in here is exactly in his ICP. Like they're all the exact people he wants to work with. And he just shows up every week and does like 2 or 3 of these. And I think he's, got clients out the wazoo for consulting in this space. And I think he even has, I don't know if he has a fund or is, I know he basically just does the Practical Founders thing and does small groups of, anywhere between, I think like 1 million to 30 million plus ARR SaaS businesses. And he makes a killing. Like, I think it's like 10K plus per month. And he just doesn't need to deviate. There's only selfies in the sense of like when they get together or something. You go through here and there's no, maybe a little video snippet type of thing, but you don't have to do that stuff. And I love to go to him as a reminder to that. If you're going to do it, treat it like art, make something that you really want for yourself first and foremost. And then it doesn't really matter what happens and you'll get the right audience. It just takes a lot of restraint to do the art, right? And to be authentic in that. And it's hard to keep showing up and doing that in a way that feels artisan, but is also sort of like vocational, right? Where you show up every week and you create the thing, but still with this sort of like artistic lens.
Yeah. So I would say that's a great share. Appreciate that, and thanks for sharing the screen. It's really useful. And I would say I would go one step further and to say everybody's chasing virality. And as someone who, I used to, for those of you who don't know in here, I used to have this Mr. 1X persona, right? That basically did all these selfies with Lambos and all the, and it went super viral. I mean, I could get 1 million impressions on a post. It just went nuts. But it did nothing for my actual business, which suggests that virality is not the answer to growing a business. So to actually growing a business, but what is, the way I look at it is not necessarily writing for me, but I look at it as I'm writing for the last 10 people that I connected with. So if I went and connected with, you know, Johnny VC, Billy PE, Mrs. Tech, what am I actually writing for them? Because that's what's going to happen. As soon as I've connected with them, my post's going to show at the top of their feed as a new connection. So what do I want them to think about me? That's how I write. And sometimes I hit a home run like Justin does, and Steve, I'm sure you do, where it goes viral. But I don't care if it doesn't, because people come to my calls and they go, "Oh, I saw that last post." Sometimes it's a post that actually got 12 impressions, yet a prospect says that really resonated. So I would write for the last 10 people. I wouldn't preach. I hate preachy posts which are do this, do that. I would always say, this is my view. It might not be right, And personally, I would never do selfies because I would think, again, I always ask this question. I think I left a voice note for Stephen Watson yesterday, and I said, look, always ask yourself, Simon, sorry, always ask yourself, would a high status person do this? Before I do it, anything, would a high status, high frame person do it? If the answer is no, don't do it. It's that easy.
It's really hard, especially if you watch YouTube shorts and you can, that guy that just cooks the food so wonderfully. It's, it's like you really want to share it. I would say like 9 out of 10 things you want to share don't. My entire brand has been built around mystery. Like every single piece of my brand is not what you'd expect. I don't have best-selling author as my headline. My bio isn't normal. The way I brand everything is backwards. So what happens is, just like a lot of my techniques, it's a series of pattern interrupts. And subconsciously and psychologically, the more you dig into it, the weirder it gets until it's just a big, beautiful mystery, right? But that's by design. So what about archetypes, Johnny? Do you think, okay, I'm going to be the Willy Wonka here, or the Axe from Billions, or is it more like we look at David C. Baker, or we look at, like Hormozi's interesting because it seems like he has a high and low frame. Like he's sitting there in Crocs and a wife beater, but he's also making like $60 million. So like,
So he
help me
says,
unwrap this confusion, right?
I'll need to see the receipts though before I'll fully believe that. But that's that's a topic for another day. But yeah, I mean, I suppose there's many ways to skin a cat. I was speaking to a client yesterday who said, either he'd figured out that frame is not always about being in control or dominating someone. Sometimes frame is knowing when to let someone else feel like they're in control, or knowing when to give up control. And that happens in negotiations too, because you can't win everything through brute force. So I think some of this is ultimately you have to be congruent with yourself. It's like me, I'm salty and cranky and direct, and you can't just kind of go and say that I'm going to be that tomorrow because it'll feel awkward. But yeah, if you really own that frame, well, you can wear Crocs and vests and little round thick black glasses and things like that and do whatever you want, I guess, because the frame isn't necessarily, it doesn't exist in those things. It's all shapes and sizes.
Aaron Norris, how about you, man? You read the book. You were at Amazon Web Services for 6 years, was it? I keep saying six, maybe it was 5.
Near
You
enough
did
six.
hard time with Uncle Jeff.
He's just got back in the driving seat now, hasn't he? In a new
Yeah,
startup.
interesting. But yeah, how about for you, Aaron? I know you've read a lot of the books and you've been building your own consultancy up in the UK. What are some of the tweaks and things you've done to your brand or your approach that are influenced by frame raising?
Yeah, I've definitely gone through the whole like I help these people with this problem in the headline, and then I work with these clients in my banner, and I've been mentioned in these areas. I think I'm somewhere between that and what you see on Johnny's profile and your profile. So I do signpost the book, but nothing else. Like just very much, so people know what Sales Life is. It's clear that it's a book. It's on Amazon. It's very similar. I don't know if you follow Dan Coe. I quite like his writing and how he presents himself in like quite a mysterious, like you say, just in quite a mysterious way. But I think it's more about how you own it, right? Isn't it? I've kind of gone through this whole, do I need to be dressed in a certain way? Do I go casual to make it look like, I don't care too much? Do I dress for the audience? But I don't think it's in the dress. I don't think it's in, the background, the environment. I think it's like the tonality you bring. It's the confidence that you bring, and probably being able to sit there and say something or ask that question, and then being able to sit with that silence and not then go again. But I think the thing I'm most proud of my transformation in my frame is that you've reframed your hair, Justin, to follow in my footsteps. So you've clearly made it.
It's called ID. Wait, I don't give IDGAF. Is that it? I don't give an
Yeah.
F. I think that's
Yeah.
one of the possible choices. I'm just gradually becoming homeless in time. The goal is Rick Rubin. Then I'll make 8 figures at that point.
Maybe we should all show up with the same hair next time.
Yeah.
The Bobbsey twins.
Yeah. I'm growing my winter Rick Rubin beard in anyway. That's what I usually do. So it's a really gnarly grey beard. It makes me look
It
even.
is a wig. It's very convincing. Paulina.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking that the more I think about embodying the frame, the more like it's an invitation to unapologetically be yourself, right? So, Justin, I always say you're like this guy that's like you enjoy being behind the scenes and like kind of mysterious. I don't enjoy that. Like, I quite enjoy taking a lot of pictures of myself and putting them on the internet. I'm sorry, right? And that's just me. And so I like to have my picture in my banner and my picture, on LinkedIn or whatever, and my picture here and my picture there. And for a while, I was just like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't do that. It's LinkedIn, right? And then I'm just like, no, this is what I like to do. And this is like me. This is my brand. And it's the same thing with the mastermind. Before I'm like, it's really a lot of work to be in my mastermind. You have to come every day. There's homework, there's videos to watch. And I used to tell people like, oh, don't worry, you can just do it at your own pace. Like you don't have to come every day. And I'm like, don't come unless you're ready to do a lot of work, right? It's not for you unless you're one of these people that really likes being busy and doing a lot of work. And it's easier. It feels better to be myself and put my picture everywhere and stay busy, right? But that's just me. It's not everybody.
Yeah, nice. Well, if it works, if it gets you the result you want, ultimately, then it works. It's like Justin and I always say about, messaging and so on. And people ask you, is this messaging good? If it sets, then it works, So ultimately, if it's working for you and you're getting the desired outcome, then, absolutely, you got to go for what you love to do and be. But most people are doing the opposite. They're trying to be all those things that you love, but they actually hate it. They just think that it's what they should do. So, yeah, I'm with you. It's great. Own it.
So let me ask you a question based on that. As part of holding that frame, should we remove should from and stop shooting all over ourselves? Does that should actually deframe what you're thinking?
Good question.
Can I jump in on that?
Yeah, please do.
Because as Paulina was speaking, what I realized was the frame is the frame, but there are hundreds of different types of frame. So you look at what he's got his gold frame around his octopus there. Well, I don't know if you've ever taken a painting to a framers and they've sat there with all the different the inside bits and the outside bits, and you keep placing them until you go, oh, that's what I want, and you go with the frame you've chosen. And that's kind of what I'm hearing in Mike's question is it's not like we don't all have to have a gold frame. We can have whatever frame we want.
Yeah.
But it's still a frame. It's still a container for who we are. And it shows us in our best light.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Love that. It's a great way to take us out, Justin, I think.
Well, there's like a number theory that comes into play, and it's completely arbitrary, but think of it like a geometric equation. You get to a call, and you're at a 7, they're at a 7. You sort of collide and you bounce off because it's ambiguous, it's ambivalent. There's not certainty. Well, you're at a 7, they're at an 8. Now you're an 8, they're at a 9. Or when you get this executive on the phone, like a C-level who's like an 11, they're just like alpha, apex predator, like, powerful. What do you do? Well, then it's Aikido. The bigger they are, the harder they're going to fall. So you kind of need to be okay, let them inflate themselves so they can fall down a little bit. So this is another topic is how frames collide and how to hold a frame. But as long as what you're doing is bringing your highest self and you're constantly up leveling and like upwardly spiraling with your confidence and your belief and your certainty in yourself and how you can get results for people, that's always a good thing. So yeah, this was really illuminating and went by in 2 seconds. So thank you so much.
Fastest ever. Cheers, guys. Great to see you.